What's good, YouTube? This is Knowledge. I am Tuesday Stud for the Butch Femme discussion, and this week's topic is legal rights and protections for same-sex relationships. Did you know that there are 1,138 rights and protections afforded to legally married heterosexual couples that are not granted to same-sex couples? These rights are not granted to same-sex couples that are in domestic partnerships or civil unions. They are, however, granted to married couples. However, those rights only extend to the state in which they live. Any same-sex marriage is not legally recognized, not federally recognized by our government. We do have an option, and that is domestic partnership. If that option is available in the state in which we live, domestic partnerships are, the option for domestic partnerships are available on a citywide, a countywide, a state, or employer level. Domestic partnerships are somewhat similar to marriages, but they don't grant any of the 1,300 rights afforded to married couples. These rights are determined by state. So obviously, since the marriage rights are not recognized federally, neither would the domestic partnership rights be recognized federally. There are steps that gay and lesbian couples can take to ensure that you are protected, your rights are protected, and you are legally safe in the event that something happens to you or your partner or your relationship. And we can do everything that we possibly can to protect ourselves legally. But the bottom line is, if the other person doesn't understand what our protections are, then it doesn't really help us any. So that's why ultimately we need to win the right for marriage in all 50 states in this country. You have to go through already so much just to get some of the same protections that heterosexual couples enjoy. What we can do, if we are just in a domestic partnership, we need to have a will. If your state doesn't offer domestic partnerships, you can enter into private contracts, private agreements, partner agreements, or relationship contracts with your girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, long-term lover, what have you. Those kind of contracts would need for you to specify your mutual obligations and your mutual responsibilities. Also will be included the items that you brought into the relationship. Before I forget, I wanted to let you guys know about a website. It's called nolo.com, NOLO.com. If you put in a search for LGBT rights, LGBT marriage, or same-sex marriage, you should come up with a comprehensive guide that they have written for lesbian and gay couples. This guide is about 344 pages. There are 35 forms included. It is updated and upgraded every single year, and it includes couples who live in states where marriage is already legal. So there's lots of forms. There's the moving in agreement, agreement to raise a child together, parenting agreement, the nomination of a guardian for the minor, temporary guardianship, contract for equal ownership of real property, which is really important, the living together agreement, which can be considered the relationship contract or the partnership agreement. I think a lot of couples probably have had their experience with this when it comes to medical insurance. At one time, I was on my partner's insurance. We did have to fill out paperwork. Her employer at the time did offer domestic partnership benefits, so we took full advantage of them. They were very good, and that is one of the ways we did eventually figure out that for a domestic partnership and for medical purposes, since the government doesn't recognize same-sex partners, the estimated amounts that your employer pays to cover those medical benefits are added to your partner's salary for tax purposes, unless you are their dependent. So, there's no way for you to receive those benefits without somebody paying in the end, and usually it's you, which that's fine, because that still is another method in which a partner is able to care for another through providing insurance. The sad thing about it is that without legislation to enforce these agreements, These provisions can be ignored by hospitals. And I'm not saying that the medical insurance can be ignored. That cannot be ignored. But say that you have a power of attorney that gives your partner permission to speak for you if something were to ever happen to you and you were to end up in a hospital. Well, if that hospital doesn't either recognize that kind of provision, or they just are unaware of it, they don't know about it, and because of that, they still won't let you make those decisions or see your partner if they're on their deathbed. You know, this information is still really important, because having it is half the battle. You know, there have been many lesbian and gay couples that have had to fight really sad fights like this toward the end of their partner's lives, and you know, it's been compounded by the fact that they either aren't able to see them in their final moments, or the hospital is just ignorant of the laws. And that's a problem that we run into a lot. So that's why we have to know our own protections. We can't rely on anybody else to tell us how we are protected and how we can become protected. We have to get on that and take care of that, so that we don't have any surprises popping up end of life. In this country, we don't let no gays and lesbians get married. We don't do that blasphemy there. Brimstone and hellfire.